Tonight, the sugar report by the National Assembly Joint Committee has been tabled on the floor of the House for the second time after the House unanimously rejected a preliminary report tabled 3 weeks ago. In the summary report, the Joint Committee indicated that some sugar samples were still under investigations to establish if they had mercury or not, sparking uproar in the plenary. It is during that sitting that allegations emerged that House committees were being used by people with vested interest in to jeopardize investigations on weighty national matters. The accusations were so rife that even the House Speaker Justin Muturi expressed anger of the conduct of committee members and friends of the committee. And when the matter got to the press, the House is now turning the heat on the media for unfair representation of the facts, and 2 journalists are now required to appear before the Powers and Privileges Committees tomorrow morning to shed light on newspaper articles that linked members of Parliament to bribery. This notwithstanding the remarks of the House plenary 3 weeks ago. Let's listen into what they had to say then.
Conducting the affairs of those joint committee. Some of you claiming to be friends. Remember, it was said yesterday that instead of going there to do parliamentary work, you've been hugging. Yeah. You know, parliamentary work is not done that way. Not through hugs and kisses. No. It's never.
I am a very, very sad man. Speaker, we have given a committee, a joint committee, used public resources for over 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the kind of recommendation, Mr. Speaker, I'm seeing here, Mr. Speaker, even in some county assemblies, such recommendations are not found. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, at least this afternoon, we expected one definite answer from this committee, that the sugar that the Kenyan citizens are consuming has no mercury. Only that alone, Mr. Speaker.
In this, listen to the committees. It is just a joke. This report is just a joke of the highest order. The committee even talks of reprocessing sugar. The committee even talks about, Mr. Speaker, finally, as I see it, that those who imported sugar during the period of the window which the minister gave, or the cabinet secretary, should pay taxes. How? And the cabinet secretary exempted sugar from taxes.
Well, that was in the National Assembly on the 5th of July this year. Tonight on the show, I have 2 members of Parliament for this conversation. Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang is going to join me shortly, who is also the chair of the Senate Public Accounts Committee, and Igembe North Member of Parliament Maoka Maore, who is also the chair of the constituency's Development Committee. But before I speak to them, let me bring in our lead reporter, Sophia Onuna, who has more insight on this story.
There you go. All right. Good evening, Yusuf. So tonight our focus is on the committees of both houses of Parliament. Allegations of bribery between members of these committees and witnesses or people who have been accused of several issues appearing before them. Also, improper contact and interaction with witnesses when they appear before these committees of Parliament. And tonight I get to speak to Sunai's Member of Parliament. He's also Minority Whip in the National Assembly, Junet Mohammed. Thank you so much for making time for us. So we had the Speaker of the National Assembly admonish members of the Trade Agriculture Joint Committee on the manner in which they were interacting with some of the witnesses who appeared. And before that, we've also had questions around bribery. Are you concerned about this?
Yeah, it is. It was a major concern, and it was actually brought out by none other than the Speaker himself. That you see, the way they were relating with the witnesses who were appearing before them, there's supposed to be some kind of official engagement with the witnesses that appear before committees. So actually, that was an issue of major concern. But members maybe were saying that they were doing it out of courtesy. They were being courteous to the witnesses, and to bring them.
We don't see judges do that, do we?
You see, we are different from judges. We are kind of, public-oriented institution. We represent people, and we don't do judgments as we recommend for investigations.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bigger concern here, which is bribery, that these committees have become cash cows, that money is being exchanged for favorable findings.
That nothing could be further from the truth. I have not seen a clear case of bribery. And I think if there's one, Parliament has mechanisms to deal with those kind of issues. There is the Powers and Privileges Committee that's chaired by the Speaker, that deals with issues of misconduct and bribery and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So if there is a clear evidence that there is any member who is involved in bribery in any form, actually the standing orders are very clear. If you have an interest in a matter, you should declare it in the committee that this matter I'm an interested party and I cannot sit in it.
Yeah.
But if there is any case where a member is involved in any misconduct, then action needs to be taken.
But it appears to be a known issue because your own minority leader, Mbadi, and majority leader spoke about especially these friends of the committees who come in during sessions trying to defend those appearing, that usually they appear to have had some money exchanging hands. So it's an issue that's known. It's not even about whether the Powers and Privileges Committee is in place to investigate.
You see, these issues of friends of the committee is a bad culture that was institutionalized in the last parliament when we had, that fight between the so-called government by then and the opposition, where when the opposition used to accuse certain people in government of corruption or in bribery or anything, then these other members come to the committee to help some people, either because of their tribe, because of being in government, or such kind of things.
So you agree it's an issue? It's
a big issue, and the Speaker is out to look at it. He has even issued a communication on the floor of the House last week that is going to capture everything that is required in terms of the conduct of committees.
Yeah, two journalists who wrote a story about a house of bribery and really just corruption taking center stage and digging in as far as roots there. They've now been summoned before this Powers and Privileges Committee. This has been condemned by the KNHCR, saying that in terms of sources, journalists are not to reveal their sources. So why probe them instead of just getting your own investigative mechanisms in place just as they did?
You see, the journalists are not supposed to divulge their sources when there is content in the story. If you read that story properly, there is no content. They have not accused anybody, single person who have been bribed. It's unfortunate that the matter took the directions it took. But I think journalists are like any other Kenyans. All Kenyans are summoned to appear before a parliamentary committee. So if the journalist has any evidence or he has any, he's going to explain himself before the committee.
They cannot reveal their sources. So what do you hope to get?
No, it doesn't matter, but he can share the committee, maybe what informed him to make that kind of story, to do that kind of story. It doesn't necessarily mean that he has to inform the committee that I was told by so-and-so, or he quotes his sources.
Yeah.
But he is going to share with the committee, as a journalist, as a professional, what informed him to do that kind of story.
But can you categorically tonight tell Kenyans that there is no corruption in Parliament, in these committees, that there is no money that exchanges hands? And if you do say so, what evidence do you have that there is?
You see, I don't have the spiritual mandate to declare that there is no corruption here or there is corruption in Parliament. That's an issue that needs to be investigated. That's an issue that needs to be looked at in a broader perspective. I can't just tell you that there is corruption or there is no corruption.
Okay.
Corruption is a crime or is a sin that happens like another sin, like adultery, like any other sin.
So it's possible.
So it's possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's get to the more important issue that some wonder the efficacy of, and they will probe issues and the duplicity questions, so that on one side you have a matter investigated by the committees and then the other investigatory organs are still, and they have prosecutorial powers. So this kind of duplicity, isn't it a waste of taxpayers' money?
You see, Parliament does not investigate.
What does it do?
Parliament brings out issues that can be used as a basis of investigation.
But the investigations can do that in and of themselves.
No, they cannot do, because some of the issues are within the purview of Parliament. You know, it is within, for example, reports that are tabled by the Auditor General. Auditor General reports to Parliament. It does not report to DCI or the EACC. So Parliament has to interrogate those reports of the Auditor General. Then when they find issues that can have culpability is when now they recommend investigations to the investigative arms of government. So they have institutions that don't report to EACC, don't report to DCI, they report to Parliament. The Auditor General reports to Parliament, and all audited accounts are first tabled in Parliament before they're taken up by any arm of government.
Yeah.
So Parliament has to do their work. That's why the committees have to do their work.
But you see, Solai, for instance, it's been investigated. Many of these issues coming before, even when you talk about the Auditor General report, whether it's counties and allegations of graft or unaccounted for funds, you still have these matters. Independent institutions can go out and find whatever information they seek or allegations, being able to look into that. So there's still no strong case for why Parliament needs to probe these issues, because most of these recommendations anyway end up shelved.
You know, Parliament is a constitutional arm of government. It has its own mandate in the Constitution, and Parliament operates in those committee forms, and those committees are supposed to investigate, to look into issues that come up on daily basis. I can tell you for sure there are many issues that Parliament has picked up, and investigative arms have not done any work on them. Mm-hmm. There are many reports that Parliament has passed.
And what has come out of it?
You see, once we pass the report in Parliament, it is supposed to be taken up by investigative arms of government.
Yes.
It's DCI, the EACC. That is why now we have a committee in Parliament that is called Implementation Committee.
Right.
Now, going forward, you will see the Implementation Committee calling now those arms of government and questioning them why they have not acted on those reports.
I'll give you a quick example. NYS 1 was looked into by PSC. They made recommendations. None of those were implemented, and many would argue it paved way for NYS 2 because the issues they raised, none was sorted. So here we are again investigating. You see what Kenyans are frustrated with?
No, not at all. The reports that were done by the Public Accounts Committee, for example, on NYS 1, is with EACC and with the DCI.
Which goes back to why they not let those organs work as opposed to duplicity.
Yeah, but you see, have you seen Parliament again investigating NYS again? 1? No.
But 2 is here because 1, it wasn't sorted.
Those are two different matters.
Okay.
Yeah, those are two different thefts. They are not the same. So they have finished the first one. They have taken the report to EACC to act on it. Now it is the mandate of those organizations to act on those reports. It's not the mandate of Parliament to do a report, then investigate, then prosecute, and then jail people. That's not the work of Parliament.
The second part of the duplicity, National Assembly has its committees, the Senate has its committees. You see Senate look into this, National Assembly into the same thing. Surely. What are we being treated to?
Now that I agree with you. Now that's where you've brought out the real issue. The issue of that duplication of an issue being looked at or being investigated by the National Assembly and at the same time done by the Senate. That is wrong. I think it's high time Parliament sits down, looks at the mandate of every house, each house, what is the work of the Senate and what is the work of the National Assembly, so that we don't duplicate, we don't do the same work to get all of us, because even the executive whom we are oversighting now are getting tired of us, because you'll see some being called to Parliament and National Assembly, the same issue now comes again to the Senate. That I agree. That's now housekeeping. Parliament needs to sit down as a house of both houses and look into their mandate.
Finally, isn't it that the sitting allowances, which many have criticized in the past, you're already drawing a salary and this is part of work, sitting allowance, travel allowance when having this committee sitting, what inspires most of these sittings?
That is an issue of a matter between an employee and his employer.
And we Kenyans are the employers.
Yeah. We don't know how you negotiated with the Standard Group. You have not told us what you are earning, what allowances you are getting, what salary you are getting. I don't know.
But we're talking about Kenyans taxpayers' money that is being stretched. We're talking about not having enough money to fund projects, most of them going to pay debts, and then here MPs being paid, and then getting extra to sit in these committees. Surely I don't get extra money to stand here tonight.
No, I don't know whether it's possible, but you see...
And I don't,
I'm
for clarity.
Sure. I can't say it for sure. But you see, there's a Parliamentary Service Commission, an independent commission within the Constitution that deals with those issues. I think the best...
but do you think it is right, you as a minority whip, that notwithstanding, yourself, do you not think it's out of order?
No, you see, it's not me to judge whether it is in order or out of order.
These are people in Suna East who are watching you representing them and are hearing you're getting a salary and other members extra on allowances.
People of Suna East knew when they are sending me to Parliament, I will earn a salary. They knew that. They were sure of that the day they were casting their vote.
And that's not the question.
You see, the issue here is these are terms that have been negotiated by two arms of two commissions, the Salary and Remuneration Commission and the Parliamentary Service Commission. So if they have negotiated and agreed, so we just have to, implement. So it's not me.
And I'm not questioning that. I mean, there's law and procedures that was followed. I was just asking in terms of, is it one of those things that as MPs you should say, you know what, for the sake of Kenya and how we're stretching our budget and resources, we can do without this.
The amount of wastage, the kind of corruption that's happening in the country, let's not focus on the wrong direction. Media has been known to be focusing on what a member of parliament earns, what his allowances. Can you seriously focus on where Kenyans are losing money?
That's some part of where it's going to waste and double pay of sorts.
And you know where it is.
Okay.
So this issue of prosecuting members' emoluments and salaries and allowances through the media for 5 good years, I don't think is the right thing.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, sir, so much for your time. Suna East Member of Parliament and Minority Whip in the National Assembly. Back to you, Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for that interesting conversation with the Suna East Member of Parliament. So the big question tonight is Parliament policing the watchdog? These after the same Parliament, through the Speaker of the National Assembly, summoned 2 journalists, that is Dina Ondari and Anthony Mwangi from the People Daily newspaper, after they wrote a story on bribery allegations in Parliament. We're going to delve deeper into that. But first, we've had the side of the National Assembly, and we have a senator in studio with us. That is Senator Moses Kajwang, and he is the chair of the Senate Public Accounts Committee. He's going to join me shortly in studio. But for now, I have Honorable Malcolm Oro, is the chair of CDF and also doubles up as a Gembe North Member of Parliament. Good evening, Mheshimiwa, and welcome to the program. So let me begin with my first question, which has everything to do with the sugar report that was tabled today in Parliament. I understand that a preliminary report was earlier reported in Parliament, was it 3 weeks ago? And most members of Parliament rubbished that report. Let me just get a quote here from one of the members of Parliament who said that that report was shallow and inconclusive. Were you part of the members of Parliament who rubbished that report then?
I was not in the chamber on that particular day, but I would have done the same rubbishing, because what we expected on the report that time is not what was in the content of the report.
Yes.
And when we asked them to go back, I think we thought they would do a better job. Now they tabled a report again today, of which contents we are going to have a debate when the time is allocated in the House.
So what many Kenyans are asking is, what will this say about how committees operate in Parliament? Because we're also getting reports from your fellow members of Parliament who are saying that certain committees, especially the one in question now, that is the Sugar Committee, shied away from, talking to or interrogating senior individuals, especially those from the government and by extension the executive.
Now, I wish not to delve into the content of the committee, given that I will have an opportunity of doing the same in the floor of the House. And usually the standing orders prohibit us from debating.
Yeah, can you give us a general perspective?
I will get to that. The contents of an issue that is before or pending before the House. And now, given that it is possible that when we have the sugar, you call them barons or the top officers in government, because I remember when the report came to us in the first place, in a point of order, when it was forwarded to the 2 committees, the House literally wanted a select committee. The reason for wanting a select committee is what has actually happened when they went to interrogate and investigate the details, because if you have the Agriculture Committee, you have the Trade Committee, these are the people who have been working with those importers of sugar on a daily basis, or in departments that will supervise them, like the KEBS and others. So we had that suspicion that time, and I remember the Speaker was very firm that we have a select committee. But somehow he was persuaded by the arguments of the majority leader and the minority leader, who argued that we are going to demean our committees and we need to have them do their work. Now, when we have given them work, what they brought to us that time, people pretended to be surprised. But actually, that is what it was expected. Because the kind of confluence that happens between these departments and the members of the committee, it was not possible to bring a very firm report that time.
Yes.
Now, even this one, I've not seen the report. When I see it, I'll be able to comment.
So you cannot make a comment now. Now, let me just remind you what the Speaker said then when that preliminary report was tabled, which most members of Parliament once again, rubbished. The Speaker said that the objective of the investigation then was lost when members started, quote unquote, hugging and kissing those whom they had called to grill. Is there a specific way members of Parliament are supposed to, conduct themselves? And basically, once again, what does this say about, parliamentary committees?
I remember when the particular witness was appearing before the committee, the joint committees, I actually appeared there as a friend of the committee. And given my experience, when we rose to get out, I deliberately never went anywhere near where the witness was.
Yes.
I walked out and I was surprised what the members were doing. And equally and doubly surprised because it was before national television. That they are doing a shameful thing and they were seeming to be proud of it, knowing very well it was before live television. And because it is unethical. And if you can recall, when the Speaker was giving his report last week, it was very good, comprehensive statement. It arose from my standing order on the 12th of June, when I rose and I complained about the conduct of the committees of the House, what they have been doing, whether it is public accounts, public investments, or most of the departmental committees, that when they try to raise issues, they are seeking publicity rather than the content and the conduct of their work. Now, when the matters came up that day when I was raising the point of order on June 12th, the issue that I was raising was based on the Constitution and our standing orders, which gives parliamentary committees or Parliament a lot of power in the sense that when our committee of the House is seated, it has the powers like that of a High Court. And like a High Court, a Committee of Parliament does not have powers to sentence somebody or to prosecute somebody to a certain punishment or anything.
So you are likening it to a court sitting.
No,
So
what I'm trying to say is that when I raised that point of order,
yes,
again, I know it was before national television, the members who spoke for nearly a half an hour, they were using very bad tones, and they were not very happy that I was about to expose the underbelly. And for me, it was not my business to protect the rot that might be happening in a hallowed institution like Parliament.
yes,
Specifically, if you find over the years, especially the last 10 years,
yes,
luckily I've been away those years, what has been happening is that members who got into many committees, they veered off some of the moral beacons that they crossed. And the ruling by the Speaker last week kind of was trying to steer back the conduct of members in committees or even in the House, such that when you have a witness, a government officer coming in, he is coming to give evidence or provide you with information to make sure that you execute your mandate as a committee or as a Parliament. And now, when that member or that committee kind of starts now deals, I remember there were some committees in the 9th Parliament, so in the 10th Parliament,
yes,
which did not table a report for 5 years, and is a watchdog committee, never tabled any report. So the question, what were they doing with the reports?
Yes, we're going to talk shortly about the role of these committees and whether they are really delivering on behalf of Kenyans.
Yes.
I understand now we have Senator Moses Kajwang with us.
Yes.
He is going to join us all the way from our CBD studios. He's yet to get ready, but we're going to engage him shortly. And of course, we're going to talk about the elephant in the house, which has everything to do with, these two journalists who've been summoned by the Speaker of the National Assembly. We're going to probe that matter even further for you right here on The Big Story, right on KTN News. We're going to take a very short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.